And again, I just want to welcome everyone to today's Job Seekers Club. We're going to have Allison Harding from Jewish Family Service uh, presenting. So, Allison, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you, Daisy, and to the Dallas Public Library, and welcome everyone for attending today. Most of you, I am presuming, are looking for employment. And just so you know a little bit of my background, I've got 18 years as a recruiter and having that knowledge. And then we continue to take classes. Right now, we're taking webinars, learning things, talking to recruiters, talking to companies. What is important and what do hiring managers want? Most of the time when you come to these webinars, we're telling the candidates yourselves what to look for, what to do. Now I'm going to tell you the way people see you when you're being interviewed and what they're looking for. So when you go to any networking group or webinar, you're going to hear many different ideas of what hiring managers want. Some of the people you listen to have some of the ideas right. Today, we're putting all those different portions together so you have a good overview of, am I doing this right? Or what do I have to change to be able to get that job offer? We're going to review what hiring managers are looking for by skill, personality, traits that make a difference when they look to hire someone. And so right now we're going to examine how a hiring manager looks at you. Okay, there we go. And we're going to do this through the hiring process. Well, what does that mean? Through the lens of the hiring manager, they determine if they want you to move on and hire you by the job that you can perform for them. They want you to be able to do the work. The job is truly wanted. How do you show that you want this job? The right attitude and motivation. When you talk to them, how do you show your true self? Will your personality fit the team? How do you compare to the competition? And finally, how good of an impression are you making on them? And how do you make that impression? All these are what's very important. So, 1 out of the 6, can you perform the job? This should be an easy question to answer, right? But it's really not. Most of the people they interview who have already gone through a screening process from HR or a recruiter have matching skills. So you're interviewing against 5 to 10 candidates. At the beginning, there were between 15 and 300 people applying for that job, 300 resumes. Narrow it down to 10 or 15. You're one of those candidates. What can you do to be the first one in that group of 10 or 15? So, what is the hiring manager looking for? What do they want in skills? Are you a good fit from the job description? Does your resume show that you can do that job? Next, experience. Have you had the same or similar jobs or jobs with excellent transferable skills? So, as an example, when I came to JFS, I had been a recruiter at JFS. They really wanted me to develop new leads for their job board. So it's important that we know what can be done and what transferable skills we have. Your abilities. In today's environment, hiring managers do not want to train you. They just don't. So when people say, oh, I'm willing to train, that's a red flag to someone. Can you explain your previous experience and that it's a benefit to the hiring manager? Again, the hiring manager wants someone who can walk into that job seamlessly. And are you engaged? Can you have a conversation and show enthusiasm and interest for the position? Can you answer questions to show your ability and desire to do the job? That engagement is really important because that's that relationship building when you have an interview. If the hiring manager doesn't feel comfortable with that, you don't move on. And then finally, your education and training. What have you done to be successful in the position that you previously held? What did you do to enhance your abilities? Next comes two. Do you really want this job or any job? Many of us have been out of work for a longer period of time. Being out of work for a longer period of time sometimes gives the impression that we're just dying to have a job, which maybe you are, but you have to show that this is the job you want. Hiring managers want to hear your passion and desire, and they want to hear it in your voice and the way you word things. Why is this important? Because they want to know you will be dedicated to doing a really good job for them because you want to be there. Also, the way you answer tells the hiring manager how you will handle challenges on the job. Now, what about being overqualified? And some of you are going to be applying for jobs that you are overqualified for. Hiring managers worry that people with more qualifications than the job needs will get bored. Their concern is that it takes a lot of time and money to orient, train, and acclimate you. And to have someone leave in a year, it's costly. You need to be able to show the passion for this job that you're interviewing and be able to explain why, even though you have higher skills, this job is important to you. And that this isn't just any interview, but the interview of a lifetime. You have to let them know that they want you sitting next to them and that you're going to be able to perform for them and that you aren't going to get tired of the job, that this is what you really want. Number three, do you have the right attitude and motivation? Very important. Again, you might have all the right job skills. You did A, B, C, and D in your previous job. But are you the right person? Managers are looking for work characteristics, motivation and drive. And if they ask you a question, what motivates you? You have to have a really good star story. You might ask, what's a star story? They're very important. So companies like Southwest Airlines and insurance companies always ask star stories. It is a situation or task, an action, and a result. And your stories can be anywhere from like 25 or 30 seconds to a minute and a half, 90 seconds. Telling a story too long is going to make me bored. So you have to be able to show your passion in your star story. So a star story starts with a particular situation you were involved in, what actions you took, and the end result. Because what the hiring manager is really listening for is the end result. Too many people will only give the situation and the action, and then they feel like they're done. No, because I don't know what happened at the end. You have to tell me. So some examples of star stories. How do you handle difficult situations? Would be a question that can be asked by any hiring manager. And you can respond by saying, I'm a people person and I can always manage the situation. That is not going to get you a job. That doesn't tell me anything. Okay. A better answer through a star story would be, solving problems and helping has always been a passion of mine. For example, in my last job, we had someone call in very upset because their delivery had arrived 3 days late. What I did when they called was just listen and not try to justify what happened. I wanted the customer to know they were heard. By allowing the customer to vent and talk and calm down, we then were able to come to a mutual decision of what could be done to satisfy them and keep them as a customer. Most important thing that we needed to do. And it worked. And my manager was very pleased with the result because that customer did continue to give us orders. That's your star story. Situation, they were angry about delivery. Action, I listened and we mutually came to a decision that they would be happy with. Result, they remained a customer. I showed the whole thing in less than probably a minute. So another question and answer might be, what are some challenges you have? Your answer could be, I may struggle in a new job because asking for help is sometimes difficult for me. And oftentimes it's difficult for a lot of people. I'm working on being more assertive and asking questions. By asking for help, I know that I can learn the job faster and quickly be more productive at any position I've come into. In my last job, I learned that by asking questions, I learned a lot and was able to add value to the job I was in. Does that make sense to everybody? A star story does not have to have a long answer. It does have to satisfy the interviewer wanting to know, can you do this job? And how can you answer questions so that I have a better feel for who you are? Number 4, does your personality fit the team? Okay, a difficult concept for some, but very important to managers. This is a huge, giant component of hiring for all managers. Many are putting more emphasis on personality because of the effects a new person can have on the team. Here's what managers do and do not want. They want team players. They do not want people who are too polarizing or me first individuals. They want you to fit in with the team, not be extreme about things, and to bring those things to the office, whatever they are. Some examples of people pushing their ideas are when people talk about, oh, you should live here because. Maybe that's not important to you. What kind of car you have to drive if you're looking to buy a new car, or how you should be doing your work in the job when you have been doing really good work before they came and you know the job well. It's important that you can show that you can add value to a team, but not try and change the dynamics of the team. A company has already invested time and money in their current team. They don't want to lose what they have built. And if it's working well, they want to improve that, how the team works. But they also want to add to it someone who will fit the team and work with them. So what does good fit really mean to the hiring manager? It means someone who can enhance the team while getting along with the team. The ability to make a seamless transition into the company. Show genuine interest and knowledge about the company and the position. Show how you approach ideas creatively, and managers want to find a person they want to spend the day with. As a manager, can I work with this person? Can I see them every day and want to be around them? Important for everyone. Number 5, how do you compare to the competition? Hiring managers will constantly compare you to the other candidates they're interviewing. All your pros and cons will be compared, and the best person standing will be the chosen new team member. If you're very close in skills, a lot more is based on personality and will you fit the team properly. The hiring manager may take the top candidates and talk it over with their manager or someone in HR to get their opinion. Be aware your responses in the interview will be scrutinized, studied, and compared to all the other candidates. Each of the people they talk to will have a different thought, but in the end, you're all going to be compared. Personality, skills, traits, attributes. And that's why you have to be able to show yourself in the interview. Do you make a good impression? So today, a good impression is virtual. In the past, it's been in person. More companies are starting to interview in person again. So we're going to take both sides. One, a good impression in person, how you dress, your handshake, the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you interact and act alive. In a virtual platform, your dress, your surroundings, the way you talk, and the way you interact alive. The way you look alive is really important. That might sound silly, but if you've ever talked with someone or interviewed with someone who has no personality in that conversation, there's no way to build a bond. And that's what you're trying to do, both in person or virtually. Hiring managers are looking for confidence, energy, warmth, articulation, and personality without being too intense. They don't want you to be on top of them. They want you to be able to share with them. So you need to be able to speak smart, but don't get too comfortable. Even when the interview is going well, you have to always stay alert. So let's review. In other words, what hiring managers are looking for. A solution to the current need, a solution to their problem. Your problem is not having a job. Their problem is not getting the work done. And that's a huge problem. And once they hire someone, they want you to be able to come in running with knowledge. So they'll have to train you on what their needs are in that department, but you have the skill set. They want a problem solver. If a problem arises, how do you handle it? What do you do? How do you look at it? How do you ask for help? How do you study it? It's important that you can let an interviewer know I can solve problems, because the most important thing is that they can see you sitting next to them. Someone that they can work with and want to work with. If they want to work with you, they're assuming the team will also want to work with you. So you have to build that relationship with that hiring manager so that they know they want to be with you on a day-to-day basis. A team player, how will you fit in? How will you work with others? If a challenge comes up, how are you going to approach that challenge so that the entire team can learn from that? Step in and make a smooth transition for all. It's always difficult to start a new job. Everybody knows that. But it's also difficult for the team because no matter what happens, the dynamic in that team will change. So I'm going to give you a perfect example. We've had 6 team members for quite some time, and now we've just hired some new people. The dynamic of the team has changed. My goal as a hiring manager was to make sure, even though everybody is very different, we are a very different team, that the personalities can meld and work together and not be alien to each other. So being able to make a smooth transition and a team player is important. So to step in and make a smooth transition for everybody is a goal of yours. And then finally, contribute relatively quickly. We talked about training and education earlier. A lot of people, when we interview them for going out on jobs, will say, oh, I learn really quickly. I don't know how to do that, but I'll learn if they all teach me. Who has time to do that today? Not too many people. So it's up to you to learn whatever it is that needs to be done on that job. So as an example, at Jewish Family Service, we are now offering virtual Excel classes, Word classes, and in next month, we're going to start advanced Excel. These are skills that might have gotten a little weary with you if you haven't continued to keep them up to date. And if you haven't, take a class. And you can let in the interview know, I'm really good at Excel, but to keep my skills up, I just finished up a basic and an advanced class at Jewish Family Service for 2 weeks. Wow, that's great. If I were the interviewer, I'd say, what are some things that you refreshed yourself on? Well, we did tables and we did this, whatever it is, you can discuss it. So your training is really, really important. Again, it's not just about your experience and history, but how you can show the hiring manager you have a high chance for helping the company and the department to be successful. How can you, as an individual, help me as a hiring manager be better? You have to be able to show that and talk about it. That's why those stories are so important. I'm so sorry. I have allergies. And of course, today I'm just being like, oh. So runny nose, coughing, all of the above. Sorry about that, everybody. So in conclusion, we're going back to the beginning. Looking at the hiring process through the lens of the hiring manager lets them determine whether, one, the job can be performed, and you do it. Two, this job is truly wanted, not any job, this job. Three, the right attitude and motivation is present. Do I have all the things to do what I need to do to help the hiring manager and that department and the company be successful? Three, are you the right fit for the team? Are you going to fit in, or are you going to be an antagonist and cause trouble? That is not what they want. Five, compares well to the competition. You all have the same skills. What is going to make you stand out above everybody else? And then six, have you made a good impression? Have you done all the right things? Have you said the right things? Have you used the right words and terminology? You know your industry and that job well enough to be able to talk about it intelligently. And when asked a question, yes, you can sit back and think about it for a moment, but really have an answer in mind. That manager has to feel confident that you are going to be the right person. And if you do these things and look at it that way, you're going to be able to have that job offered to you after the interviews. If you have challenges with that, JFS is here to help you. We help everybody in the community. And our phone number is 972-437-9950, extension 340. And if you have any questions directly, you can always email me at aharding@jfsdallas.org. We would love to be able to help you. Are there any questions now?
Yeah, I have one question in the chat from Jody Ann. How do you stand out if you match a job description, except for the desired years of experience?
So you talk about specific achievements you've accomplished in that job. So as an example, if someone is applying for a job as a career coach at Jewish Family Service, I'm going to take that because I'm most familiar with it. And they've been a coach at other places. What examples are they going to give me that can show me that they can be a standout along with the rest of the team? Those are the things that are so important. And that's why when we talk about those star stories, and I know I'm stressing that a lot, but they really do show what people can do and who you are. And it's really important. And what I tell people to do, because you're always going to be asked that behavioral question. You just are. Tell me about a time when, give me an example of, show me how you would handle, all those types of questions are behavioral questions. and they're hard. Some of them are really difficult. You have to be able to give that star story to show why you are better than your competition. My son graduated from college and was in an interview. He's 21 years old. And we told him, you're going to have some of these odd questions asked of you and some behavioral questions. Figure some answers out. The question he got was, how many pennies does it take to reach the top of the Empire State Building? And he just sat there for a moment. And he said, could you please repeat that? So as the person was repeating the question, which is a good process, and we'll talk about that in a moment, he was thinking of how to answer it. And his answer was, I don't know how many pennies it would take, but what I would do is measure how many pennies are in an inch, how many inches are in the Empire State Building, and multiply that to come up with my answer. So there was a process in the way he answered it. Now, your next question, did he get the job? He was offered the job. Yes, he was. And when asked why, he asked the guy, why are you offering the job? He said, too many people don't know how to answer that. They'll just guess. It'll take 4,327,000 pennies. Who knows? They weren't even looking for how many pennies. They were looking at the way you processed in a difficult situation. Okay? That's a really good question that you asked. And so you just have to show how you stand out. Okay? Now, if you are asked a difficult question and you don't have an answer at the top of your mind, ask them to repeat the question. Your brain takes 3 to 7 seconds to process. While having them repeat the question, you're processing your answer so that you can give it to them. And usually they take longer the second time they ask the question than the first time. So you're given plenty of time to be able to process that particular question. Any other, I hope I answered that correctly. Any other questions?
Hannah posted in the chat, how can you know if you're competitive against other candidates?
So you have to be able to look at your resume and the keywords and phrases, and then you have to be able to look at the job description. If most of what you've done is on that job description and you've been called for a position or a screen or to be interviewed, then you are competitive. We tell people at least 70 to 80% of what you've done in the past has to match the job description. Today, right now, during the coronavirus, every job is getting a minimum of 300 applications, 300 resumes. Well, does every job get that? No. So as an example, when I worked at Southwest Airlines, if we put a job out there, we would get 10,000 applications. And that's no exaggeration. We really did. They'd come from all over the world. On the other hand, at Jewish Family Service, when we put a job out there, we'll get between 50 and 40 resumes, okay? But the average is 300. So if you don't match those key skills, they're not going to call you. How do they see that? Many of them have ATS machines, applicant tracking systems, and those look for key phrases. Others, smaller companies like Jewish Family Service, we don't have a machine. We have people going through those resumes. And we have an HR department who looks at them and say, okay, I think you as a hiring manager should look at these 6 resumes. But if your skills don't match, or transferable skills, it doesn't have to be the same job, but skills have to be transferable so I can see it. So I'm not going to assume you know it. You have to spell it out for me. Good questions, you guys. Thank you. Any others?
Yeah, we've got a few more in the chat. Alyssa's sharing a personal story. I just received a rejection to a job that called me back for 6 different interviews over 2 months. I had to reach out 3 times to ask if I was still being considered before they responded to tell me no. After making a big deal that it was between me and one other person out of 120 applications, I would have thought they would be more respectful in letting me know I didn't get the job and why. They never gave me a why. After being out of work for a year, this was very disheartening. Why are companies requiring so many interviews now, then act like they've never met you when it comes to explaining why they didn't hire you?
All right, so that is a really good question, and you're right. It's happening more frequently.
Yeah.
Usually not that many, but interviews, that's a lot. There's three things I want to say about that. One, no company is required to tell you why. And the reason they're not going to tell you why is they don't want to get sued. Plain and simple. So if they tell you something that you say, well, I don't like the way that sounds, I'm going to sue you. That's why they're not going to tell you why. Number two, companies aren't nice. They don't tell you much. Recruiters aren't great. They don't tell you much. You just have to continue to plug on and on and on. It's not easy, and I know that. So when I say these things, I'm not saying, oh, it's easy, just keep going. It's a difficult process. So you have to just say, you know what? Out of 125, I was one of two. That other person either told a better story, showed a different skill that I don't have. They may have hired from within. There's a dozen different scenarios you don't know. And it doesn't matter. What you have to remember, and what's so good about that, is that you were one of two. So that's the other way to look at it. And there was something else I was going to say. Oh, I know. If it's a company you really wanted to work for or a type of job you really liked, write them and say, listen, I know we had 6 interviews, you hired someone else, but I love your company. And if something else comes up, I would like you to please consider me for that. We had someone who interviewed for an accounting job at the city of Carrollton, and she was also one of two, and she did not get hired. But she did email them and say, listen, I love the people I talked to. I enjoyed so much what I heard about the city of Carrollton. I would really like to be considered if something else comes up. She didn't hear from them for 6 months. 6 months later, she got a phone call. Are you still available? Yes, I am. We have a job we think is perfect for you. Would you be interested in interviewing? Yes, she was. She interviewed, she got the job. That was 3 years ago. She's still there. So if you like the company and if you like the people you met, even though you're discouraged, let them know you want to work there. You never know what could come up. Or this other person might not work out.
That's true. I think we give a lot of ourselves in the job search, so it's hard not to take it very personal if we, get rejected. And then the lack of communication from companies. Yeah, I've definitely been there.
Yeah,
Um,
and I mean, honestly, when I say things like we all have, we all have. We
yeah,
honestly have. But listen, I give you a lot of credit for being one of two. That's
yeah,
terrific.
awesome. Okay, and then Hannah posted another question.
Uh-huh.
Um, what if you really do want any job at all? What's the best way to not show desperation in the hiring process and try to show the hiring manager that you want this particular position?
That is a really good question, Hannah. So many people today are desperate. They need a job. They need to do something. So there's a couple of different things you can do. One, really study the company and the job and let the person with whom you're interviewing know how much you've looked at the company and reviewed them, not all companies. A good question to always ask, at the end of an interview, you're always asked, do you have any other questions for us? That's always something that they ask. One of my favorite questions when people would ask me, what makes you better than your competition? Because that lets them know that you looked at the competition and that this is the company that you want and that this is the job you're applying for. But now you're hearing it from the people to whom you're speaking, and I like that question a whole lot. So that's number one. Number two, be able to fit your skills, your abilities into the job that you're applying for. and to be able to fit the realm of what that company needs so that they can see you as a problem solver. And they're going to say things like, gee, I see you've been unemployed for 9 months or a year. What happened? Well, I got laid off before COVID, I'll be honest with you. And I was interviewing and I really thought I had a position, and then COVID struck and that company stopped hiring, as did everybody else in the DFW area. So let people know why you're not employed, but also let them know what you're doing to better yourself, that you're not sitting around eating bonbons and watching TV all day. Let them know that you're taking classes. Let them know that you're researching different skills. Let them know you're trying to improve yourself. All those things are really important. And I know some of you are not going to like this. Take a bridge job. It's not going to pay what you're used to. It's not going to have a title. It's not going to be all those things you want. But as a hiring manager, I like to know that someone was proactive. We have a client now who was a director of HR for a fairly large company who lost her job because of the coronavirus. They just cut way back. She is now working as a waitress. And she said, I don't love it, but it's paying some of my bills and it's helping out. So don't be afraid to let people know, yeah, I'm making $15 an hour. I used to make $50,000 a year, but this is helping me pay my bills and I feel it's important.
Allison, can I say something?
Sure. Oh, hi. I didn't even know you came on.
Yeah, I've been on for a minute. I was going to say too, guys, when you take bridge jobs, one of the things that you're doing is you are now networking, because you're going to be there or even here, like on the Zoom with other people and teams. Or even if, like in Allison's example, like the waitress, right? She talks to people all day long. That's all she does, right? She takes orders. How y'all doing? Right? And once you start that process and networking with people, you never know where it's going to lead. I had a job once in my career. It was just a 1-month gig. They were real upfront and said it's just for a month, and it was a recruiting job. I used to be a recruiter, and the client that I was working for, the client of the staffing company I was working for, came to me and said, hey, your assignment's ending next week. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you've been great. Sorry, we can't keep you. I was like, no problem. He says, listen, I have a friend who owns a staffing company and he's looking for an on-site manager. And I told him all about you. Here's his phone number. Call him right now. None of that would have happened had I not just taken a quick 1-month contract. And again, just doing a good job networking, and it led to an interview.
And staffing agencies really are a great place to find your future. They really are. Adding on to what Jason said, my son, the one that I told you about, the Pennies, Empire State Building, he took a job in an executive training program with Travelers Insurance in Connecticut. Hated it. Okay. It's a 3-year program. After 2 years, he left and moved to California to become an actor. Well, everybody who moves to California is going to become an actor. So what did he have to do to survive? He had to work in a restaurant, and he worked in a Houston's in California. And he was there all the time. And that's one of those restaurants where people come back all the time. And once they know you, they start asking for the waitress or waiter. This one couple kept coming back, asking for Ryan. And one day the guy said to him, hey, you've been waiting on me for 6 months. I think you're doing a great job. You have a wonderful personality. I'd really like you to come to work for me. And Ryan was like, what? No, I don't think so. And he said, no, seriously, I want you to think about it. He handed his card to my son. It turned out he was the executive vice president of the same company his brother, Ryan's brother, my other son, was working for in Chicago. So Ryan called his brother and said, do you know this guy? And Kyle said, yeah. And he said, tell me about him. He did. Because he took that interim job, he ended up working for this person for years and is now in an industry he never knew he would be in. So what Jason is saying, what I said, take that interim job, network, get to know people. Who knows what you can do or who you can meet. You're always on the job search when you're in the job search. Anybody else?
Yeah, Darlene is asking, what's the best way to locate a volunteer opportunity to keep Excel skills fresh?
So that's a really good question. One, don't forget you can take the classes at JFS, the beginning to intermediate and the advanced, which is going to come up in a month. But two, JFS actually has a volunteer job. It used to be in a booklet that you could come in and get. Now it's online. You can go to our website, www.jfsdallas.org, and look up volunteer opportunities. And we have like a couple hundred in that booklet. Anybody else?
And I just put our website in the chat for everybody.
Oh, thank
You
you.
don't have to remember, just go ahead and copy it.
All right, and then I'll also send the links in the email after our session today.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions? If you would like to ask your question, you can always hit the raise hand button or type it in the chat. I think we've covered a lot of really, really great information today.
Yeah, y'all asked really good questions, and they can relate to everybody. So thank you for asking them.
Yeah, I think I'm going to jump off of Darlene's question a bit. What's a good way to present some of the things that you do in between jobs, even if you're not necessarily volunteering or working? Because I think often people think that, like, oh, if I took off of work for 6 months because of a family situation, that 6 months is lost to me. And I feel like there's definitely ways to present some of the things that you've been doing, and present them in ways that provide value to where you're interviewing.
So it's a really good question. A lot of people, many people today in our environment have had to take off to help family members, aunts, uncles, brothers and sisters who have kids and no daycare, parents who are maturing and need some medical help or physical help. And that's not a bad thing to put on your resume. Let me tell you, it's another one of those items that can show that you have compassion, that you care, that you've been working, you just haven't been working in your same industry. That's one. So as an example, when I moved here from California, I had to take some time off to acclimate my family to Dallas and buy a house and move in, all the typical things. So I was off of work for about a year, a little over a year, in fact, maybe a year and a half. And so what I was doing was volunteering. And I ended up becoming the president of the PTA. So on my resume, from when we moved to Texas to current, I put all my volunteer activities. And then underneath each of those activities, I put something that was accomplished during my time with that organization. So as an example, I was on the women's board of the Dallas Symphony. We started a 5 and 10K run. I put that on my resume. Participating in designing, directing, 5K run that netted the first year $150,000 or whatever it was. I don't really remember. But those are some things that you can do. You don't have to always be physically working to be working, but you have to be doing something, be it volunteering at the local dog shelter, pet shelter, working at IHOP, working at a boutique store, anything. to keep busy. Jason, do you have anything to add to that?
No.
Thank you.
No, I do. Of course I do. Yeah, you whatever it is, whatever the thing is, you do have to account for your time. You can't say, and yes, I know we're in a pandemic, but you can't say, oh, well, I've been looking for work. No, you haven't. You haven't been just doing that thing. I don't care what the thing is that you do. And Allison mentioned like, volunteering at the SPCA or things like that. Maybe it's not that. Maybe you built a deck off the back of your house, right? Maybe you took some time off to do some distance learning, right? Whatever it is, you have to have something to account for. It's got to be something.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Alyssa is asking if you offer practice interviews.
We do. Yes.
Awesome. Any other questions for today? Anything else we'd like to ask?
So I want to tell us that we do offer practice interviews. Obviously, it would be by Zoom. When our building opens, don't know when that is. We also have a camera and a room set up so you can do mock interviews and see yourself during the interview. So not only will you have the interview with one of our staff, but then we'll play it back for you so you can say, oh, I said that. And people do that all the time.
So if anyone on this call does want to use those resources from JFS, is it best to just call the number here or email you? Is that the best way?
Correct. Call the number here, 972-437-9950, extension 340. That's what's called our intake line. You'll have to give them some information and then they send everything over to us and our team. What we do, unlike other companies, we look at the person and say, which of our 6 employment coaches and 3 financial coaches, because we have one person who does both, is going to be a best fit for you and help you advance as much as possible. So like Jason has certain skills, I have certain skills, Phil or Mitch or Chris, any of us. And what we do is match you with your personality from what we can see on a sheet of paper, which is a lot. But when that intake person asks you questions, give as much information as you want. We are covered by HIPAA laws. It never goes beyond those 4 walls. So you never need to worry about anything getting out anywhere.
Thank you, Allison.
You're
Also,
welcome.
Want to remind everybody, we're doing an online meeting right now, and honestly, like online networking is the wave of the future, or we're in it now. But I think maybe looking at some non-traditional places. Facebook has places where you can look for job postings. I'm on LinkedIn. I've been on LinkedIn for a while, but this year I've really been on LinkedIn, like commenting, sharing, making posts. The library is also on LinkedIn if you ever want to find out about our programs, what we're up to. We share about library resources, and not just job resources. We share about all kinds of things, articles, like even just sharing an article, commenting on people's posts that you see, like that helps start a connection. So there's lots of ways to keep busy, even if you can't go, or not even keep busy. There's lots of ways to reach out to people, even if you can't physically go to places right now.
And LinkedIn is a great, 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 great source, but you have to stay current with it. And if you have any questions, Jason is our LinkedIn guru. So.
Thank you for that, Allison. I was going to say too, that's a great tactic, Daisy. And one of the reasons is it's like the people that get hired are the people that get noticed. And a great way to get noticed, to be what I like to say, you want to be visible, is doing exactly what you said, liking people's content, tagging them in it when you comment, doing your own content. I'm a big proponent of doing your own content on LinkedIn. And if you're about to say, but Jason, I don't know what to post, or I don't have anything to post. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You have a voice, use it. It could be something about how you're dealing with COVID. It could be something related to your job search. Last week, I posted a picture of my cat who was sleeping on the dog bed next to my desk and literally captioned it, "My coworker is asleep on the job." That was a post. As far as LinkedIn goes, and what I tell my clients, I don't care. I don't care what you post. I write posts usually days in advance, if not sooner or farther back. But point is, if you're consistent with it, people will see it. I guarantee you, you apply for a job, you get set up for the interview, they're going to go look at your LinkedIn page.
It's the first thing they're going to do.
All they have of you is a resume. Your resume, and this is what I like to say, your resume is the steak. Your LinkedIn is the sizzle. Got it? So like if you're posting content, they can go to your LinkedIn, they can see it. They can go, or maybe it's like I don't know what everybody does here, but like maybe you're posting something that's germane to your field. Like, hey, here's a problem that I had at a former company. Don't name the company, and here's how I solved it. Now you're proving yourself to be an expert in that field. Get stuck? Don't know what to post? Go Google motivational quotes and throw one up there. It's like, guys, it makes the difference. And in fact, and I know this because I did a lot of research, because I've got a LinkedIn presentation webinar that I'm going to be doing soonish. And what LinkedIn said was this: out of all the people that are on LinkedIn, right? And the number was something like, I don't know, 7 billion or something like that. Only 1% of the people post regularly. 1% out of everybody. Now, if you are one of those 1% of people that are posting on a consistent basis, daily, ideally, but every other day or once a week, whatever you're comfortable with, you are one of those people that is going to stand out. 1%, guys. Think about it. It's worth it. And also, too, don't get scared. Look, I've been on LinkedIn a long time. One of the things I've discovered is LinkedIn is a safe place. It really is. Like nobody, it's not mean like Twitter can be. Like nobody's gonna call you out. In fact, I'm not connected to the person, but the person that commented on this person's post, I got to see because I am connected. But there was a gentleman who was very, very upset with a recruiter and their company and just called them out, just lambasted them. And the person I'm connected to responded very nicely and politely and said, you may not want to do that. And here are some of the reasons. So like even when something went crazy off the rails, somebody was there to politely say, oh, don't do that. That's bad for you and your brand. People aren't going to hire you because of that, So don't worry. Don't be scared. Post, get out there. I challenge everybody today. Go post something today.
Let them know that you just took a class at the Dallas Public Library with Jewish Family Service, learning about interviewing and what hiring managers want. Post it. It says I'm doing something. I'm being proactive.
And people get to see your personality a little bit more than they would on a resume.
Ethan, what's the percentage of recruiters that use LinkedIn for hiring?
97% of recruiters are on LinkedIn sourcing candidates. That's almost everybody that's a recruiter.
That's a big number, you guys. Remember that.
All right. Last call for questions. Anybody else have anything they want to share? Any questions they want to put in the chat or raise their hand? We have a few minutes. Allison, thank you so much for presenting today. I know I learned quite a few things.
Good. And thank you, everybody, for coming. I really appreciate it. And even though I can't see your cute little smiling faces, we'll get to know you sometime.
All righty. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Jason, for hopping in and giving us some tips.
He's so good.
Thank you, Austin. And thank you, Daisy. I'm happy I was helpful.
Thank you for sharing. I mean, this is really helpful for everybody when we come together and we can bounce ideas off each other. I know like sometimes we're like, what do I say? What do I, and then you hear somebody and, you're like, oh, actually, and here's how I can connect to that. All right. Well, I think
thank you, everybody. So long.
All righty. Everybody have a good rest of their day.
Thank you.